So while it's true that long as we got King Jesus, we don't need nobody else, Jesus didn't necessarily want us to go through this life alone. So really, if we're walking through this life without counsel, we're doing ourselves a disservice. And we're carrying a load that is completely unnecessary. Hello, classmates, and welcome to another episode of What School Didn't Teach Me. It's your host, Jasmine Camber, and class is in session. Welcome to episode 6, and I'm going to get straight into it. Today, we're going to be talking about therapy. I know in episode 4, I mentioned our episode about social media. I mentioned that there are a couple episodes that I'm very, very excited about, and this is one of those episodes. There is a lot of stigma in, I guess, the community of people of color, because I don't think it's just an issue with Black and brown people. And I noticed that it's changing. I noticed that the stigma is changing as the world is becoming more self-aware and is desiring a life of more freedom and ease rather than just staying content with the things that we think are normal about us that may not be so normal, like feeling scared to leave the house, or certain feelings of anxiety, or prolonged feelings of sadness. You know, I noticed that we're learning how to, or teaching each other how to self-soothe, how to seek help, and how to acknowledge when we might need some help. But I still think it's a conversation to be had because there are still skeptics out there. And as long as there are still skeptics out there, there are people that need to be talked about therapy. So here I am, Jasmine Camber, the podcast host, talking to you about therapy. And so anybody who knows me knows I am an advocate, okay? I am very pro therapy and pro prayer. But I'm very, very, very pro therapy. I started going to therapy when I was 15. I really didn't like the way that I was feeling. I didn't like the way that I was feeling. I was, at 15? At 15, I was starting high school. 15, I was starting high school, and so, of course, I had just gotten out of middle school. Middle school was very hard for me. The middle school that I went to, we would always say everybody came out, like, depressed. We went in as regular kids, and then we came out depressed. And so, of course, I fell victim to that. And I did not like the way that I was feeling, and I didn't like the path that it was leading me on because I didn't know if there was better, but I figured I should give better a try. And so at the time, my mother was going to therapy, which was kind of my introduction. And I grew up around people who said, like, you're too young to be feeling like this. You're too young to know anything for real. And of course, that affected my thought process about therapy. Like, is this something that only adults do? Is this something that is even for me? Is this something that would even help me? Am I overreacting about feeling this way? Like, do I even deserve the help because I'm only 15? Like, I had all of these questions and all of this doubt in my mind. But I told my mom how I was feeling, told her that I thought I wanted to go to therapy, and she was just like, okay. I'm not sure if that was a hard pill to swallow for her, but I think she was able to see some of the things that I was going through. At least in my outward expression, and really just wanted a solution. So I started going to therapy. I met my first therapist, and I was not feeling her. I went to one session, like the initial clinical session where you get the initial assessment session where you kind of get to know them. I think I went to one, maybe two, but I think I only went to one, and I was like, yep, nope, not feeling her. She and I just did not click. We did not connect. But she was my mom's therapist, and my mom really liked her. But I didn't feel like she clicked well with me. So I stopped going. And then there was a new therapist that came in that psychologist's place. And my mom was like, okay, do you want to try again? I said, the trust issues in me say no. Like, no, if I didn't like this one, then I'm not going to like this next one. Like, what's the point? Let's not even do this. Let's not even do the back and forth, please. But I went, And, I met her. I don't know if I should be giving like the description of my therapist on the net, but immediately from when I walked in the door, or immediately from when I saw her, I was like, this woman is different. Now, the first psychologist that I met, she was black. And this lady was white. This lady was white, and I was like, oh my God, I have a white therapist. But her smile was inviting, her voice was inviting. I did not feel judgment when I spoke to her. She spoke to me as if I was a human and not just if I was a child. And that was really big for me. And so that is still my therapist to this day. I am now 20. Uh, I'm now 20 and I still rock with the same therapist. So I started for real at 15 and I stopped going maybe at 17. Oh, no, I lied. I stopped going at 16. It was a lot going on in my life and circumstances caused me to stop. And then at 17, I went back. Of course, I was a little anxious because I'm like, this lady ain't seen me in a year. She probably don't even remember what we talked about, yada, yada, yada. I picked up the phone and called her, and she was like, oh, yeah. Last time we spoke, I'm sure a lot has changed, but last time we spoke, this is what was going on. How is it now? And we picked it up like no time was lost. After I went to school, she still was checking in with me. We were still having appointments. And actually, I ended up finding or utilizing my school's therapist. So now I have a therapist at home and I have a counselor at school. And I'm utilizing both of them. I have appointments with both of them, and they're both helping me with certain situations because at this point my home therapist, we can't get as many appointments in as we usually would. But me and my counselor, we might meet every other week. We might meet every month. Having a therapist helped me with my transition out of depression. My home therapist really gave me a safe, non-judgmental space at a time where I didn't feel like I had that. And at a time where I wasn't comfortable with any adult that I was around. Like even with my mom was my mom. There were certain things I could tell my mom, and there were certain things that I couldn't. I didn't have any older siblings. I had older cousins, but I was really weary about reaching out to anybody about a problem. And so my therapist really gave me the space to talk to a logical, sound mind about anything that I was going through, free of judgment, free of shame, really. She really taught me, or was trying to teach me, about my own decisions and how anything that I do in this life should be of my own decision, and that it's okay for me to make my own decisions. Like that's something that I really had a hard time learning. Growing up, I had a hard time learning or recognizing that there was no right or wrong way to do certain things. And I mentioned that in the last episode, Watch Your Mouth. I mentioned that like growing up, I always had to be doing something. And I was always scared to do something wrong. Like one of my biggest fears growing up was to reach that one decision that would change my life forever. And people didn't quite understand why I had that fear. But the fear was instilled in me from when I was little. And so my therapist was really my gateway into, okay, yes, you've made this decision. Why did you make this decision? How did it benefit you? Did you learn anything from it? Even if the decision wasn't the best, I wasn't shamed or ridiculed. I was talked through it. And so like I said, she was really the adult who was there when I feel like I couldn't talk to anybody else. And that was so huge for me. That was something I so badly needed because I felt like I needed to be seen. I felt like I needed somebody to see me growing up, and I felt like she saw me. And she was there to listen to me and figure out who I was instead of who she wanted me to be. I mean, of course, she don't know me, so, she has no expectation for who I'm supposed to be. But you get what I'm saying. So yeah, that's my personal experience with therapy. And that is why I'm such a huge advocate for it. Because it really, really, really changed my life. Between therapy and Jesus, I was pulled from a very, very, very dark place. And the person, if anybody who knows me now could see the person that I was at at 13, 14, 15, shoot, even 16, they really wouldn't believe what they're seeing. Like I really have experienced a different type of growth, and I give therapy a whole lot of credit for that. Even the way that I talk to people now, I was actually just having a conversation with somebody, and I would start the conversation off with I think, I feel, I think. And I was telling them that is a communication tactic. Like that is a communication tactic that you learn in therapy to help you digest your feelings, your thought process, and explain them or share them with people better to have a better conversation. So like I use therapy or I use mental health tactics in my everyday life, and when I say I thank therapy for setting me on the path to growth and to progress and to healthy communication and healthy relationship styles and healthy expression and self-care. I thank therapy. I thank my therapist. I thank my counselor. I thank all the mental health pages that I follow who share these pieces with me. And so I definitely make it a point to tell anybody that I know who's considering or who's thinking about or who's going through a tough time to seek a counselor, to seek a therapist. And so, I always have my notes beside me. So we just gonna hop right into the notes. First things first, there is no perfect time to go to therapy. I wrote down perfect, but I think I mean there's no bad time. Like, go when you're sad, go when you need a mental health checkup, go when you just need a praise report. Like, there were times where I would be on the phone with my therapist and I didn't really have a problem. I just was like, oh yeah, this is what's been happening in my life. And they will be all good things. Your life doesn't have to be in shambles for you to go to therapy. You can check in with a counselor without being on the brink of a depressive episode. It's like a car. And I'm not a car girl, but as far as car maintenance, you don't wait till the last minute to get your car maintenance, because by then your car's gonna crash. Not crash, but by then your car is going, burn out. You shouldn't do that to your brain, to your mental. I know people have heard the saying, prevention is better than correction. And that's really how I see it. If I have a therapy appointment and I don't have anything bad to say, I still go to the therapy appointment. If it's been a minute since I've talked to my therapist and I feel like I might need some assistance or some checkups in the future, I'm going to start making those appointments, because prevention is better than correction. Even if by the first appointment I'm still fine, I'm still going to go to the appointment and talk to my counselor. Like, sometimes we just need to get certain things off our brain. Sometimes you'll go to your appointment and you'll be fine, and then things will come out that you didn't expect to come out, and now you've solved a whole nother problem. So just go. There's no perfect time. There's no, I'm going to start therapy when this is together. I'm going to start therapy when this, that, and the third. Just go. If you're thinking about it, just go. And I know that it can be hard to find resources to get therapy, especially in certain communities. But I know there are alternatives. I know that there's been the BetterHealth app or website floating around. I think telehealth or teletherapy is a resource. There are a couple of websites that give free therapy. And I want to say that there are scholarships being given out, or there's money being given out for people of color to go to therapy. You just have to look. You have to look, and you can't stop looking. Okay. Secondly, you are not, say it with me now, you are not crazy, you are not weak, and you are not less than for wanting to go to therapy. Say it again. You are not crazy, you are not weak, and you are not less than for wanting to go to therapy. You're not. People don't understand how much strength it takes to be open and honest and vulnerable about needing assistance. To be quite honest, if you are able to be honest and transparent with yourself about needing help, it's because you want that. It's because you want to be better. It's because you want to strengthen yourself. It's because you have a desire to pour into yourself and give yourself more. And so now let me talk to my men. Men, speak up for yourself. You are not crazy. You are not weak. You are not less than. Society has taught men to hide their emotions, to suck things up, to take things to the head and keep it pushing. That's taxing. That's taxing. To take all of society's pressures to the head every single day as soon as you wake up is taxing. And it's okay to let someone else help you carry that load. It's okay to have somebody take that load off of you. I know men are trained to carry everything, but you have to admit that that's not fair to you. Carry what's important. If you're going to carry a sense of pride, carry pride in your being and not pride in stubbornness. If you're going to be stubborn in your passions and in your goals and not in your ways. It's okay to want help. It's okay to want to feel better. It's okay to feel like things are too much. It's okay to feel like the life that we are living every single day is too much. We wake up every day and live like we don't get days off of this life thing. Let somebody else help you carry that load. My next point or my next piece of advice is to tell people to be open and to not give up. I told you I went through 2 therapists. Which means that it took trial and error. I didn't get it right on the first time. Or me and my first therapist weren't a good fit the first time. But I didn't stop. I could have said, well, I hate this therapist, so I hate all therapists. Well, this therapist didn't work for me, so none of these therapists gonna work for me. And therapy ain't for me. I really don't like when people say therapy is not for them. Because if you can sit there and have a conversation with your best friend about how terrible your day is and how people do you wrong, you can sit there and have a conversation with a therapist about the things that bother you. You can sit there and have a conversation with your therapist about some things that happen in your childhood that affect you as a young adult, as a teenager, as a grown person. So I can't stand when people say that. Anyway, be open. Don't give up. Don't be closed-minded. Give yourself some time. You won't open up to your therapist right away. I can't recall when I started opening up to my therapist, but I remember the feeling. And I was scared. I can't even remember what we were talking about, but I literally can remember her office. I loved her office. But I remember being scared. I remember feeling like if I say this out of my mouth, there are a million things that can happen to me. She could tell my mom. She could judge me. She could laugh at me. What if I'm so passionate that I curse in front of her? Then she's going to be looking at me like I'm a little kid who shouldn't be feeling the way that I feel. I remember being scared to be myself in front of her. And now years later, we be laughing kikiing on the phone like we are colleagues. It's so terrible. But give yourself that space. Give yourself that time. You won't open up. You may not open up on this first session. I can't say you won't. Because by all means, be open, honest, and transparent. Find comfort in your counselor. And that's another thing I had to learn. Like, I hate to say it, but there's almost no such thing as oversharing with your counselor. Because if there are things that are important in your life, you kind of need to have that conversation about, bring it up. Not the point. You may not be super open during the first session. You may not be super open by the third session. 2 months in, you still might be hesitant towards your counselor, but trust the process. Trust the process. Give yourself the time and the space to open up. Give your counselor the chance to be trusted. They are not hired to judge you. They're there to help you, not to harm you. So give them the chance. Give them the chance and give yourself a chance at better. Give yourself a chance at progress, at growth, at healing. Healing, we talk about all the time. Healing is not linear. Progress doesn't happen in a day. As you and your counselor build your relationship, you will see the progress that you're making. Now, if you and your counselor don't work, then that's okay. Y'all don't work, find a new counselor. But if you feel like, I like this person, I want to open up to this person. Well, I like this person. I like this person as my counselor. I'm going to stick with this counselor. Give yourselves the chance to build a relationship, for you to open up and to trust them, and for them to help you. Speaking of letting them help you, when they give you assignments to do it. When they give you homework. I remember my first session with my counselor at school. First of all, my first session with my counselor at school, she tried to tear me up within the first 10 minutes. I was like, whoa, I just met you and you asking real personal questions. Like, watch out. Like, Miss Ma'am, I don't even want to answer that. I am going to, but I don't want to. Stop asking questions that the counselor should ask. But my first or second session with my counselor at school, she gave me homework, and my homework was to write down my 1 year, 5 year, and 10-year goals, I believe. And I wrote them down, and she ate me up with that. I could not get away. And it could seem pointless when it's like, well, babe, I don't even plan to know you in 10 years. But do the homework. Do the homework. If they tell you to go home and try some mental health exercises whenever you feel anxious, do those mental health exercises. Like, give yourself a chance at better. Why would you pay for therapy if you're not going to use all the tools and resources that the therapist has to offer? Let's talk about it. Now I got to talk to my Christians, my brothers and sisters in Christ, my family, my Christians. You are no less of a believer because you want to go to therapy. I think that's where a big stigma comes around from therapy, at least for the Black community. It's like, well, as long as you got King Jesus, you don't need nobody else. And while that's true, and a lot of times people be like, oh, pray it out. You feeling sad, pray it out. You feeling some type of way, wash them dishes, maybe you'll be all right. Maybe all you need is to drink some water and take a nap. No, I need to see a counselor. I need help, okay? I need assistance. So while it's true that long as we got King Jesus, we don't need nobody else, Jesus didn't necessarily want us to go through this life alone. So really, if we're walking through this life without counsel, we're doing ourselves a disservice. And we're carrying a load that is completely unnecessary, that we don't need to carry. I know that we put everything we have on the altar, but let's sit and be honest. When you put things on the altar, how often do you stop worrying about them? Even if you have mastered the art of peace, every now and then, there still may be a load that you are carrying. God expected us to walk with counsel, not by ourselves. He even said that 2 heads are better than one. And he didn't always mean friendships. He didn't always mean friendships because sometimes our friends ain't that wise. Okay? He was talking about wise counsel, advisory. Okay? Even the kings had advisors. But in case you don't believe me, I did my research and I looked up some scriptures to follow up with this statement. Ready? Boom. Galatians 6:2. Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verses 10 and 12. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them. Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. I can't go through this life by myself. I can't fight off an anxiety attack by myself. But if I talk about it with a counselor and they give me resources on how I can regulate my emotions for the next anxiety attack, maybe I would experience it differently. Now that I have a solution to my problem, I can ease my own anxiety. I can't fight depression by myself. Anybody who's ever had to deal with depression knows you cannot fight it by yourself. And you shouldn't even try. I know depression has a tendency to make us want to isolate and make us think that it feels good to lay with our heads buried under the blanket, but we need counsel. If you plan to get out of a depressive episode, you need counsel who can give you some tips, tricks, and maybe even help you dissect and digest why you're feeling that way and what you can do to move forward. And really, it'll only work if you're both working towards it. You can't be working harder than the therapist because that's not their job. Their job is to give you advice. My professor said that a counselor's job is to push, not to pull. So you just have to be ready to stand. Okay. Proverbs 19:20. Listen to advice and accept discipline, and in the end, you will be counted among the wise. Listen to advice and accept discipline. Listen to counsel. Go to counseling. Hear what they have to say. Hear how they can help you solve your problem and accept discipline. Do your homework. Keep going to appointments. Keep opening up. And then you will be counted among the wise. Then you will be able to share your testimony about what you went through and how you came out because you were able to listen to advice and accept discipline. All right. I already said it, but we're not meant to walk through this life alone. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that we are meant to walk through this life alone. Like, that's not even something we should be considering. But if we want to be honest, if you don't feel your best, you can't give God your best. And if you don't feel good about yourself, if you don't feel good about your circumstances, if you don't feel good communing with the community that's supposed to be around you, how are you expecting to give God your best? How are you expected to give God your all? So yeah, I'm going to say it again, and you should say it with me. You are not crazy, weak, or less than. If you need help, you need to seek help. And it doesn't make you weak. It doesn't mean you're not strong. It doesn't mean you can't handle yourself. It doesn't mean that you are any less ambitious, that you are any less independent, that you are any less worthy or valuable because you need help. Our worth and our value is not contingent upon how independent we are. And as a previous or as a formerly hyper independent person, my worth hasn't changed. In fact, I would say that my value has increased because I know and I can recognize how to use my community, which means I can be present in my community. So if you're interested in therapy, look for it. I wish I had more resources to give y'all, more tangible resources, but be open, stay open-minded. Don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on your counselor. Give yourself a chance for better. That's it. I hope this message catches you at just the right time. If you are over there on the brink of maybe I do need some help, this is your validation. This is me reaffirming you. Do it. Do it. If nobody else has your back, I have your back, okay? I have your back. I'm rooting for you 100%. I'm rooting for your growth. I'm rooting for your progress. I'm rooting for you. There was a point in my life where I didn't think that there was better. I didn't think I was ever going to stop feeling low. I didn't think that I was ever going to stop feeling scared to leave the house. I didn't think I was ever going to stop feeling scared to approach new people. And now I have gotten to see who I really am. And that's one thing about anxiety and depression. You don't even get to see who you really are because you are so clouded by your what ifs and your fear and your doubt. And so years later, after years and years and years of progress, I'm finally getting to see who I really am. And I love it. And I love it. And I'm able to be my most authentic and audacious self to promote other people to do the same. So as a girl who is still going to therapy, who still sometimes struggles with anxiety, who used to be super hyper independent where I didn't think I need anybody or anyone, but I was struggling with a load that I didn't even know how to explain on the inside, go to therapy. If you're thinking about it, do it. I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for you. If the people around you don't support therapy, find some new people immediately. Immediately. And if you can't afford therapy, research some cheaper alternatives. Journaling. We talked about journaling in one of our last episodes. Journaling is a self-soothing mechanism. Find some things that you like to do. The thing about depression is it'll take away the things that you like to do. So you have to push yourself. Push yourself to try new self-soothing, healthy self-soothing mechanisms while you research mental health resources. So yeah, I just want to say that you are not crazy, you are not weak, and you are not less than for wanting help. And I hope this helps. And I'll see y'all next week. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Remember, this is meant to be a conversation. So as much as I talk to you, I would love for y'all to talk back to me. Message us on Instagram and Twitter at WSDTM Pod. Or send us an email at whatschooldidn'tteachme@gmail.com. Better yet, send this episode to a friend and start the conversation there. And let's see what we can learn from each other. If you like what you hear, go ahead and subscribe and give us a 5-star rating on whatever platform you're listening on. Trust me, it matters. Ooh, there goes the bell. I can't wait to hear from y'all, and I'll see you next week.